So, this was originally going to be a style select on karate, and in the process of research I realized it's impossible to talk about karate without analyzing the single most famous karateka in video games. That is, of course, Ryu. And we all know that Ryu uses Shotokan karate, which is incorrect because his style is officially called Ansatsuken. But the more I looked at his animations, the less I recognized what the style actually was, because it certainly doesn't look like any karate I know of. This led me down a rabbit hole of message boards and subreddits of other people putting their theories together to figure out this very same mystery. And now that you're here with me, I'm dragging you into the hole too. So join me as I try to figure out... Let's start with the origins, as it pertains to Ryu. Ansatsuken is the official given name for Ryu's particular style of karate. The name Ansatsuken very literally translates to Assassin's Fist. The story goes that when Street Fighter II was being localized for Americans, Capcom of America felt it would be inappropriate for the hero of this game to have such a sinister-sounding name for his martial art. Thus, they reached for the name of a random karate style and ended up with Shotokan. Whether or not this story is true, the fighting game community at large has been using the term Shoto to describe characters who look like this. And it's become such a staple of the FGC lexicon that the word has basically taken on a new life of its own. But I digress. Back to Ansatsuken. To my knowledge, there is no real-world martial art called Ansatsuken. Rather, it's a catch-all term used to describe any martial art whose sole purpose is to kill. It's interchangeable with the term Satsujinken, Murderer's Fist. The origins of the word date back to as early as Fist of the North Star in 1983, where it is used to describe fictional martial arts like Hokuto Shinken. Technically speaking, Gen's Kung Fu is a form of Ansatsuken. Of course, this all makes sense when you consider Akuma, whose mastery of Ansatsuken culminates in the Shungoku Satsu, a technique that canonically results in the absolute death of its victims. Do not start with that raging demon never killed anyone nonsense. You are not clever for saying it, and I do not have the time to debate this right now. Later Street Fighter canon would contextualize Ansatsuken as the primary conflict between Akuma and Goken. Akuma, who believed that true power can only be achieved through death and destruction, and Goken, who somehow turned it into a pacifist style. Some speculate that the style was called Ansatsuken specifically to frame this conflict, but I suspect that can't be the case because Akuma and Goken did not exist in Street Fighter II when the style was first named. I personally suspect that the style was called Ansatsuken to make Ryu sound cool and mysterious, or like most video games at the time because it was lifted straight out of Fist of the North Star. So since the lore and story don't give me any hints about what Ansatsuken is based on, I have to look at the fighting style itself. And while it's difficult to pin down what Ansatsuken actually is, I can confidently tell you what it isn't. And it isn't Shotokan. At least, not 100%. Without getting too in-depth about the origins and philosophies of karate, gotta save that for a real style select, the cliff notes on Shotokan is that it's an outfighting style with a focus on spacing, striking from range, and being able to close in and disengage safely, often easily identified by its wide stance. There are some elements of Ansatsuken that borrow from Shotokan, namely a few of its kicking techniques. Shotokan kicks are used to control space and create distance, and a few of the more traditional Ansatsuken practitioners like Ryu and Akuma utilize side heel kicks and roundhouse kicks in this way. Even Ryu's Jodan Sokutogeri is closer to a Shotokan stepping side kick. Even still, it's such a small part of Ansatsuken's shared moveset that we couldn't definitively call it Shotokan. It's more likely that the core of Ansatsuken is based on a different style of karate called Kyokushin. Unlike Shotokan, Kyokushin is an infighting style focused on staying close to the opponent and delivering crushing blows to the torso. Kyokushin focuses on hard body training, which, yeah. And most notably, it uses a closed stance that protects the upper body, something that's been mostly consistent with nearly all Ansatsuken characters since the beginning. Furthermore, Ryu's moveset in most games showcase a focus on short-ranged punches, body blows, uppercuts, solar plexus strikes, and more. Even the Shin Shoryuken, traditionally Ryu's strongest technique, is essentially just a gut punch into an uppercut to the chin, and delivers its maximum damage when connecting at point blank. A mix of Shotokan's spacing tools at a distance and Kyokushin's powerful strikes up close would certainly make Ansatsuken a well-rounded style that's effective at any range, perfect for our well-rounded protagonist. But I don't think that's all. Ansatsuken isn't just good karate, it's the Assassin's Fist, an enigmatic style whose techniques are privy only to a sequestered mountain temple where its vaunted secrets are taught only to the worthy. A martial art that transcends the boundaries of man, earth, heaven, and beyond. As such, I theorize that Ansatsuken is also partly inspired by Shorinji Kempo. Shorinji Kempo is a Japanese martial art largely adapted from Shaolin Kung Fu. While it's a relatively modern style, established in 1947, its teachings go far, far back. Shorinji focuses on spiritual development as much as martial technique. And as most Chinese martial arts do, it also teaches the concept of Qigong, the control of internal vital energies through meditation and focus. While Shotokan and Kyokushin might cover Ansatsuken's practical techniques, Shorinji might just cover the single most important technique that makes Ansatsuken what it is, the Hadoken. There are multiple philosophies and goals to Qigong, the pursuit of spiritual transcendence or the perfection and mastery of the self. If there really is a connection to Shorinji Kempo, then it should stand as no coincidence that Ansatsuken characters are often associated with Buddhist imagery, as Shorinji is based on Shaolin, which itself is rooted in Buddhism. And many of the characters associated with Ansatsuken also happen to embody different spiritual pursuits. Akuma, whose power is expressed through death, seeks to transcend his mortality, and Goken, whose power is expressed through stillness, seeks to perfect himself. Narratively speaking, the core of what we know as Ansatsuken is based on spiritual strength as much as it is physical strength, philosophies that are also shared by Shorinji Kempo. By the end, I still have to come up with an answer to the question, what is Ansatsuken? While I dislike giving inconclusive answers, the most accurate conclusion I can draw is that it's defined by the individual who uses it. Ryu's Ansatsuken is a balance of all of its aspects, a foundation of Kyokushin with a touch of Shotokan and the spiritual practice of Shorinji Kempo. Ken's Ansatsuken is a lot less spiritual and a lot more practical, focused on the development of techniques with later iterations of Ken's moveset even mixing in some kickboxing, likely a development from his time as a competitive martial artist. Akuma draws from Shorinji's deadlier techniques, aiming for pressure points and vital organs with techniques that live up to the name of Assassin's Fist, whereas Goken reinvents Ansatsuken as a passive style by pulling from Shorinji's soft techniques and creating a style that punishes aggression and turns a foe's strength against them. Ansatsuken is about how the user internalizes their vision of mastery, transcendence, and the path towards strength. Thanks for watching today's advertorial. Style Select will be coming back at some point or another. In the meantime, feel free to go ahead and press the engagement buttons, leave this video a like, and leave a comment below on what your thoughts are about Ansatsuken. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more content from SugarPunch. Our channel is supported on Patreon, so be sure to check it out for early access to future videos, as well as access to exclusive polls for Style Select. I'm ABI, and I'll see you later.